Hi, everyone. I'm Dorothea Hendricks, your communication coach in presentation skills and the art of speaking. I'm so excited today. We have a special guest. I know you've heard me say that before. All my guests are special, but this one is really, he's a cool dude. He's a real cool dude. And so let me share with you a little bit about him. We're going to welcome Nelson So today, who is a certified, see, he's waving, Nelson is a certified numbers guru and a financial literacy expert, and he's a chartered professional accountant, a CPA. Now, Nelson has a mission, and his mission here is to help the world, help people out there, you and me, understand money and how it works and how we can make it work for us instead of us always working for it. So in order to do that, we need to understand money. And in that regard, what Nelson did is he did a video. He did a TEDx talk. If you haven't seen his TEDx talk, I really encourage you, get onto YouTube, Nelson So, Financial Literacy and a Social Media Generation. That talk is basically all about creating an awareness of how important it is to be financially literate. And Nelson has helped thousands of people improve their financial situation. In fact, I'm going to say he does, and he is having a global impact. Now, Nelson has served as a consultant for many public traded companies, private organizations, financial institutions, sports organizations, educational institutions, and the list goes on. Nelson is a really enthusiastic fitness buff. When you meet him in person, he is fit. He looks amazing. He's amazing on screen, and he looks even better when you see him in person. He's a best-selling author, and he is an avid real estate investor. So Nelson, welcome, welcome, welcome.
What an introduction. Thank you so much, Dorothea.
Well, every bit of it is true. I mean, I was there. In fact, I want to let people know that I was one of the coaches that Nelson had, in his great TEDx talk. So that's my plug for me, and it's a plug for Nelson as well. So Nelson, I have a question for you, and this is something that's been on my mind for a while. In your talk, you mentioned the term financial freedom. Now, financial freedom, commercials, anything that has anything to do with money, financial freedom is what they talk about or shout that out. Can you define what is financial freedom, the definition of it in your term, and what does financial freedom mean to you?
Absolutely. Personally, I actually don't like the term financial freedom. I prefer to call it financial independence. And the reason for that is because I believe that when people achieve financial independence, they're no longer reliant on the things that they would have to do to work for their money. Like their money is effectively working for them. So that to me is how people can achieve that independence, and how can people get there, because it is a lot more achievable than people think.
Well, and that's interesting. I like financial independence. It takes me off in my mind in a different direction, right? As opposed to financial freedom that I can't really get a grasp on. But so thinking in terms of financial independence here, let's take and you've had these people already as clients, people who are in enormous debt. They have a lot of debt, and you tell them, you can be financially independent. We can do a few things here to help you get out of debt and get on that road, to feeling better about yourself and about understanding how money works. How do you get that into a person, help them build their confidence when they're a sinking ship? They're just overwhelmed with all the debt and their money issues around them. What's one step that you would take to help them?
That's a really great question. I think a lot of people that I work with, they feel that the debt that they've taken on is just so insurmountable. Like they'll never get out of it, right? There's so much, it could be credit card debt, it could be lines of credit, mortgages, car loans, student loan debt. There's so many different forms of consumer debt that people can take on. And I think the first step is sorting it out, like which debt is actually good debt, so debt that's actually serving you in a positive way, and which debt is effectively called bad debt, which is not serving you, that you need to eliminate faster. And once you can identify the two, it really changes the psychology of how you think about debt. Because we're brought up to think that debt is a bad thing, but not all debt is actually bad. So if you're somebody who views your house as an asset, a mortgage could actually be really good debt for you because it increases the value of your net worth, your equity. Whereas something like maybe a car loan that stretches you to live beyond your means might be a bad debt that you're paying excessive amounts of interest on that you really shouldn't be taking on.
So that would be one of the first things that you're going to tell people is what kind of debt, or help them understand what kind of debt they actually have. In your TEDx talk, financial literacy and the social media generation, which I really encourage anyone anywhere to go onto YouTube, as I said earlier, and go have a look and listen to what Nelson has to say, because Nelson is coming from the place where he was in debt and found his way out. So Nelson, that video that you did, the TEDx talk that you did, your key message, if you had to take one or two sentences and put them, what is your key message in that video for people?
Great question. I said it a few times in my TEDx talk. If I had to put it in one line, financial literacy is non-negotiable. And that to me means that it's your job to understand and become financially literate. People always say, you know, in the systems, in the formal systems, we're not taught about financial literacy, how to handle money, but that's not really an excuse, right? So when I work with people around financial literacy, I get real with them really quick. So I kind of hit them across the head and say, what type of debt are you taking on? Where's your financial situation? What are your goals? How are you going to get there? And when people say, I don't know, I don't understand, I wasn't taught how to budget, well, let's help you figure it out, right? It's your job to understand this and to learn this so you can put yourself and your family in the best financial position possible.
And that's the message. That's the message that you've got. And that's the message I think that I hear from you every time I speak with you. And I've listened to your talk as well. And I was there in person, you know, listening to your talk. That is so important. And I think a key thing here is responsibility. As you say, we weren't taught, many people weren't taught, they don't know, their parents didn't know, and you're just kind of going along the same road. And one day, there you are, you find yourself in a situation that you'd rather not be in regarding money. But what I hear from you is that, yes, you can get out of it, but you can get out of it when you take a grip on your own responsibility, that now, no matter what the situation was before you, you've got to grab hold of it and you can deal with it. And you are a resource to help people deal with it.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, thanks so much. I mean, there's just so much. I have a lot more questions. And for people out there listening to this interview, I'm going to just say, really, again, if you haven't seen Nelson's video, go watch it, because it is really, really important, and it will give you a lot of ideas, and it will also introduce you to Nelson as a person maybe that you can go to help you with your finances if you find yourself just into overwhelm and don't know where to turn. If you are interested in having a bit more insight into Nelson, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue this interview. Some of this will be on LinkedIn, but much of this is going to be on YouTube, because on YouTube, we're going to dive into depth in a few more questions to find out more about Nelson and some of the things that he could do to actually help you in your situation if you are in debt. And even if you're not, and you just want to know what your money can do for you, Nelson is the man to talk to. So Nelson, in terms of your own experience, what is the biggest roadblock that people have in terms to achieving financial independence?
Oh, Dorothea, there's so many roadblocks, but I would say that one that is the most common that I actually struggled with at a younger age was transparency around your money. So understanding where your money's going, where it's coming in from, and it's as simple as looking at your bank account. And I think a lot of people fear looking at their bank account because they don't know and don't want to see what they don't want to see. So what that means is I've, talked to some people and I said, hey, what's your financial situation like? Have you looked at your credit card debt recently? And they said, no, I don't log into my online banking because it's too scary, because they don't know what they're going to see. So I always tell people the first step to financial literacy is looking at your bank accounts, looking at where your money's going, so you don't spend all your time looking for it when you actually need it the most.
So if you're not looking at it and you don't know where you are, you really can't change it. What you're saying is, in order to make a change, you have to, even if you're scared out of your wits, you actually have to take a look at it. So what prevented you from taking that initial look? Because you said you weren't transparent.
Yeah, it was, putting everything on a credit card and just saying, oh, I'll deal with it later. But then when the credit card statement comes at the end of the month going, holy smokes, where did I spend all that money?
Mm-hmm.
But then it's after the fact because you've already spent it. So what I do now is I check my bank accounts daily. And at the bare minimum, people need to be checking their bank accounts at least weekly, because you need to know where your money's going and you need to know where you're spending so you can adjust based on your budget every month.
You find your experience here when it comes to spending that if I look at, like, I'll use myself as an example, if I'm looking at how much money I've got and I want to buy something and I don't have that money, but I want to buy this, now it means I have to make a decision. Whereas before, not knowing, I just might go, well, I really, really, really want that leather jacket and it would look so cool, right? But now if I'm guarding, I may not buy the leather jacket that would make me look cool.
It's changing from making financial decisions based on emotion versus
Yeah.
based on facts.
Right. And in the long run, we need to make them on facts, right?
100%. Yes.
You have, I noticed on your website that you wrote the 100-day, I think I'm going to read it here, the 100-day money mindset journal. So number one for question here, what is the 100-day money mindset journal? Number one, that's it. Number two, what made you do it? And number three, how will people find it helpful?
Yeah, I probably won't remember the questions in particular order, but
That's okay.
number one, the 100-day money mindset journal was a tool that I decided to create because I found that a lot of people that came to me for help around financial literacy, they were struggling to create healthy money habits. So I thought maybe I can create a tool that will help people develop those habits. You know, the quote, it's very common. They say it takes 21 days to make a habit, but I thought, well, a lot of people can't seem to stay consistent for 21 days. And after that, they feel like, okay, well, I've done it for 21 days straight. It's a habit. And then they drop off. So I decided to create the 100-day money mindset journal because I figured if you can do it for 100 days, you have the best possible chance to create a habit. The second question, I believe, is how does that tool help people?
Yes.
So it helps people create money habits that include checking your bank accounts daily, setting financial goals, and reviewing your finances so you understand where you're at.
Have you had clients that you're working with? Because I know you've got different people all the time that actually are using your 100-day money mindset journal.
Yes, I do. Yeah. So every client that I work with
Yes.
grabs a copy of the journal and I work with them through it to help them set their financial goals and make sure that they're on track, because every day the journal asks you to review your financial goals,
Yes.
review where you're at with your credit card statements, your bank accounts,
Yes.
your money affirmations for the day to set that mindset right.
So an interesting word here is mindset. I mean, there's a lot of talk about mindset, speeches on mindset. Why is mindset so important when it comes to finances?
Because money is such a psychological thing. Like there's a lot of emotions that go into money. So we alluded to it earlier where you said, well, if I really like to buy, this pair of shoes or this jacket, and I might not have the money for it right now, but I feel like I really, really want it. I would say most people would just go and buy it and they say, I'll deal with that later. I'll deal with the credit card statement later.
Yeah.
And that's the psychological, emotional piece of money that is kicking in. But what I want people to start getting the hang of is looking at the actual data, the facts, how much is actually in my bank account, what can I actually afford, and make decisions based on your budget versus based on your emotion and how you feel that day.
Yeah. And it's interesting, in your speech, you talk about you bought on emotion, didn't you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was expensive.
Yeah, expensive. And so you want to just briefly share the story?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was probably about almost 10 years ago now. I decided to buy a luxury car that, I felt like I could afford because all my friends were doing it, and people who were, with the CPA designation and at that management level or job title were driving around nice cars, and I wanted to fit in. So out of emotion, I thought, man, I would look like this would be so cool if I could show up with this car with my buddies and fit in. And, it was great. Signed the papers, got the car. 6 months later, realized that this is probably a little bit outside of my means, and I had to sell the car. And I truly believe that I'm not the only person that falls into that same situation.
So what was the turning point where you realized that this would be nice to have, and maybe I could keep stretching it, but it would make a tough life? And then, well, it's better for me if I get rid of it. What was the turning point? What was that little pivotal moment?
Yeah, it was when I was reviewing my financial goals. So I had the car, I had the house, had everything, and I was like, okay, well, life's good, right? It makes sense. Everything's going. I'm achieving what I want to achieve. But then I looked at like my 3-year goals, my 5-year goals, and I was putting the numbers together and I said, it doesn't make sense because there's no way I'll be able to achieve my 3-5-year goals if I'm going at the current rate that I'm going right now. I'm not able to save fast enough to get there.
Yeah. Which is interesting. That's another thing when you're dealing with people, do you have them set goals? I'll speak for myself here, but I suspect that I'm not alone, is that people don't set concrete goals. Right? We think we have goals lots of times, but we don't write them down. We don't really think about them. We don't plan the steps to meeting this, year 1 or this year 3 or this year 5. And I think that's one of the challenges that a lot of people have is we're like a leaf blown in the wind. We go here, we go there, we think, but we're not really truly sticking to our track, which is what your 100-day money mindset journal actually helps people do.
Yes. Most people, you're right. Like most people don't actually have concrete financial goals. Like when we think about goal setting in our professional lives, we try to set SMART goals, like SMART goals. And when it comes to financial goals, the most common one that I come across is people will tell me, Nelson, I want to buy a house. I want to buy a home one day. Awesome. That's a great goal. And that's all they get to. They don't tell me where the house is going to be, what size, what price, like the nitty gritty details that people think might be too specific, but actually matter the most, because saving for a $500,000 house versus $1 million house are two completely different things.
That is, if you can get a $500,000 house.
That's right.
I don't know where we're living. So I'm going to go back to the TEDx talk. Here you are, you're a successful accountant, a CPA. What made you want to go and speak on the TEDx stage?
Going through accounting training as a student and then as a professional, one day I realized I don't even have my own budget, like a personal finance budget. So I sat down and I tried to make one, and I thought, wow, I don't really have the skill set to make one, or the one that I've created is not at the level that it needs to be. And then I took a step back and I thought, well, if I'm an accountant and I can't do this properly to help myself, how are other people doing this? So once I had my finances in order, I spent probably 3 to 5 years investing in myself and learning about how money works. Once I had a good understanding of that, I made it my mission, which you said earlier, is to help other people understand how money works, because there's definitely a void in the resourcing out there of what people need to know to achieve financial independence. And I want to help bridge that gap.
And so that was your idea for doing, you saw the stage as a way of sharing that information.
Yes.
Yeah.
To
And
reach more people
go ahead.
Yeah, to reach more people and to share with them that even though I'm a CPA, like nobody's perfect, right? We're all going through this together, this journey together of life. We're all learning together. And if we work together, we can all improve together.
And I think the other idea here, that even though you haven't mentioned it, in a way, money is a mystery to a lot of people, or we have a mystique around it. Like it's, there's something here. And what you're trying to do is, I think in everything, and certainly in the talk you gave, is make it uncover the mystery. It's not a mystery. There's nothing mysterious about it. That if you sit down, you look at it, you plan, you begin to understand, which is understanding that whole concept, right? So what was your biggest learning experience? Well, before you answer that question, so you went on the TEDx stage. Have you gone on to other stages as well, Nelson?
Yeah, so I've spoken at a few leadership conferences. I've spoken at some educational institutions. And recently I just did a keynote speech for a leadership conference around financial literacy and money, and helping young adults and people who are mature in their careers understand the importance of financial literacy.
Yeah. So you've done these talks now since your TEDx talk, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So looking back at that TEDx talk, which I'm going to say was probably a stepping stone, for your other talks, what was your biggest learning looking back now from where you are now giving these talks to that TEDx talk that you did a number of years ago? What was your biggest learning there?
For me, I think it was being able to memorize 13 minutes of script and deliver it effectively on stage. Like that was a really big learning curve for me, because as a speaker, we're always prompted with, our own, flashcard notes or a slideshow or something like that. But when you go on that TEDx stage, you feel very vulnerable because all you have is yourself and the microphone,
Mhm.
and everybody's watching. So there's no kind of crutch to hang on to. And I think doing the TEDx talk helped me build that confidence of knowing that I've practiced this and I've put so much time and effort into this with my magnificent coaches like yourself and Roger, that we've been able to develop an intentional talk that I can deliver confidently, irregardless of if I have a slide or flashcards or anything like that.
And what happens here is because you're giving material, number one, that you really believe in. And the more you actually say this, the more it actually becomes part of you. So the more talks you give, eventually you can pull out of the air different things that will help that particular audience, right? With the more practice. So
Exactly.
how do you deliver talks now? Are you doing them? Do you spend time preparing your presentations? Has the TEDx talk kind of given you a pattern or a format that you can follow to help you in your other presentations?
Yeah, every talk seems to be different because the
Yes.
audience is different, the age groups are different, the focuses are different. But I would say the preparation techniques are generally the same. So I'll try to maximize it with like 10 slides at most, because I'd rather the audience focus on what I'm saying and delivering as opposed to looking at the screen. And generally, I don't put much words on the screen, because I want them, again, to focus on me versus on the screen, which is something that I learned from delivering my TEDx.
Yeah. There's so much in learning. And in terms of the TEDx stage, being on it, has it helped elevate? I know you were already successful before you got on that stage, but has it increased your business, elevated your position in the business community even more?
Definitely, it's added that credibility, I would say, as a subject matter expert, as a financial literacy expert, and being able to have that global reach. The last time I checked, I think we were over 70,000 views on YouTube, with comments from all over the world. I've had people reach out to me on LinkedIn. I've had people reach out to me on Instagram, on TikTok, just on various social media platforms to connect with me, to ask me questions and share their experiences. So that alone is a huge, huge win.
Oh, that's such good news, right? It shows the benefit, and it shows really that what you've got here, that your topic is it is really, I'm going to say, of global significance. There isn't anybody, even for people I know that are successful and manage their money, there's always some learning that can take place regarding how money works, right? It's amazing. It's one of, I think, one of life's most challenging topics for many people. So here, in terms of, you're helping people a lot. I mean, as an accountant, you do a lot of number crunching. You are actually a numbers guru, right? I like that. I like that you're a numbers guru. What do you think is your strongest? If you could give me, looking at yourself, what do you think are your three strongest attributes in helping others?
Yeah, I think for me, being empathetic is number one. Like I think I'm able to connect with people and understand their situation. So whether it's helping people run a business and giving financial consulting that way, or helping people with their personal finances, that's definitely number one. Just being able to relate to them and understand where they came from. So a little bit about me and my background, like immigrant family, we didn't come from much. So when people, tell me about their struggles, their financial struggles, I totally understand it, and I put myself in their shoes to help them achieve their goals, because I want to show people that you might not come from, say, a super wealthy background or have it handed to you, but if you put in the time and you put in the work in the right ways, you can actually do it.
So it doesn't really come down to, some people go, oh, you're just lucky. You're just lucky. Or somebody had it out for you. That's why you didn't get where you are. What I hear from you is that, yeah, there may be an element of maybe some luck, but ultimately we create our own through knowing and understanding, having a grip on it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What's that
So
quote, Dorothea? It's luck is when opportunity and preparation meet.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly that, right? So it would lead to, like, I guess my second strength, which is like working hard and understanding that we have to work for everything that we get. And there's something that we allude to in Life Literacy, which is a book that I co-authored with Matt Young and Stan Peak. And we talk a lot about entitlement and the mindset around entitlement. So I want to show the current and our future generations that entitlement does not lead to success. Hard work leads to success.
How do you combat entitlement? Because it almost seems to be embedded in our culture these days.
That's a tough one, because entitlement can come from many different areas in somebody's life. It can come from their family, it can come from their workplace, it can come from their upbringing, anything. So I think entitlement is something that we have to highlight when things don't go the way that entitled individuals want it to go. And when they ask why, we have to explain to them that not everything's handed to you. So an example could be, I spoke with a 20-year-old recently. He had reached out to me on LinkedIn saying, "Hey, Nelson, I saw your TEDx talk. It was awesome. For some reason, I can't get this job promotion. I've been trying so hard and I feel like I deserve it. And you mentioned increasing your income on social media as a way to achieve financial independence in your life, but I can't do it. What am I doing wrong? I feel like I deserve this job." And when I read his message, I felt very grateful that he reached out to me. But I also felt some entitlement in the tone of his message, that he felt like he worked so hard and that he deserved this. And how could they choose anyone but me for this promotion?
Mm-hmm.
And when I jumped on a Zoom call with him, I tried to explain to him that just because you feel like you're the best candidate for this promotion doesn't mean that you necessarily are. There could be other factors. And it's sharing, again, that empathetic and compassionate side of me while teaching the entitlement is, entitlement is not always given to you, right? Like, you have to earn it.
Yeah. That's number two. What's number three? If you're empathetic, you have empathy, you're a hard worker. And I love that story, because also in your TEDx talk, you talk about when you felt you were so entitled, right? And
Exactly.
so what would be a third attribute or a third skill that you have that can help people?
Yeah, it's for me, it's resiliency. It doesn't matter what gets thrown at me, will find a way to get through it. And I try to share that same, I don't know if you would call it resiliency a mindset, but I guess so, like an attitude of, I can get this done. Like the word impossible, it can be impossible, or you can split into two and say, I'm possible.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right. So I think it's just flipping the switch of how we think about things and being resilient to any roadblocks or setbacks that come into our life.
And really building up the desire that if you want to do this, understand the concept of money, want to get out of debt, and can see your 5-year plan and are into specifics, then having somebody who cares and understands about you is working hard and is also expecting you then as the receiver to work hard, and then and really just moving forward regardless.
Absolutely.
What is it Napoleon Hill says, having a burning desire? It almost sounds to me that, in a way, Nelson, you work with a burning desire.
Every day.
I mean, you do have this incredible commitment and this emotion. It is like a burning desire, right? So your 3 skills: resiliency, working hard, and the empathy. Yeah, and really the best qualities, because money is it's not only not only have a mystery, but it's something that we hold really close to our chest. People talk about affairs, they'll talk about everything else, but nobody wants to talk about their bank account, right? Well, I don't know how many people talk about their affairs, how many people you actually get. It seems to be something that people will talk about anything but their money. So I've read, I think it was Wayne Dyer, I'm not sure, maybe a number of other people who are were highly successful. They talk about having a system and sticking to that system every day in order to reach the success, the goal that they want. Do you have a system? And if you do, what is it?
Now I'm sharing my secret sauce, Dorothea. I do have a system, and I truly believe that all the successful people that mentor me, or that I follow, or that I've read books like authors, they all follow some sort of routine or some sort of system that they do every day, and it's predicated around discipline, right? They all have this extreme amount of discipline in everything that they do. Mm-hmm. So for me, what that system looks like is, number one, I wake up in the morning and I start with gratitude. and I think about someone, some part of my life that I'm very, very grateful for. And if I can't think of anything, well, I'm grateful that I woke up that morning,
Yeah.
right? There's always something,
Hey, yeah.
right? So I start with gratitude always, every single day. And then from there, I work on my family, my fitness, my finances. Those are my 3 F's that I focus on every day. So family could mean, catching up with my sister, or, chatting with my friends, like that I consider my chosen family, working on my finances. How am I going to help somebody be better with their financial literacy? Or how can I look after my own finances? And then my fitness, something that I really, really take care of every day, because I believe that there's no wealth without health. So I train every day, I work out every day, I do something outside every day just to help refresh my mindset. And of course, I work on my businesses every day as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. I mean, that sauce is valuable sauce for anyone. For anyone. Actually, I made a few notes because I'm going to say I'm a bit careless. I'm not all that consistent every day, but I find listening to people like you, I get re-energized, re-engaged. You mentioned something about mentors. So you have mentors, do you?
I do.
Yeah. What made you, how old were you for your earliest mentor, and what made you decide to take people on to mentor you?
I was probably in my mid-20s when I found my first mentor, like formally asked them, "Hey, do you mind mentoring me? Like, can we meet once a month or once a quarter and just chat about stuff, about life, about business?"
Mhm.
And I wish I had started 10 years earlier. Like, I wish I was in my teens when I got my first mentor, because I think it's very valuable that you have somebody who's, 5 years ahead of you, 10 years ahead of you, 15 years ahead of you, because they share different perspectives about life, about business, about relationships, about money
Yeah,
that you may not have seen.
yeah. So important. Would you recommend that young people, especially if they really feel strongly about going in a particular direction, to get a mentor, to have a mentor?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Find somebody that you get along with, that have the
yeah,
same values as you,
yeah.
and just ask them, like, "Hey, can I buy you a coffee once a quarter and sit down and just pick your brain for 30 minutes?"
Yeah. And I think that advice, that's invaluable advice, because I would say, I'm up a few years beyond you. And looking back, I would go, wow, now I see the value of having people guide and mentor and check in and ask. It's invaluable, because otherwise we kind of bumble along on our own. And there are so many things that through the guidance of other people, we're actually can move ourselves ahead further than if we just mumbled and bumbled along by ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So on your website, and I just have a couple more questions and we're going to wrap this up, but on your website, you say outside of your comfort zone. I love this. Outside of your comfort zone is where magic truly happens. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, it means saying yes to filming a Mercedes-Benz commercial. It means saying yes to doing a TED Talk. It means saying yes to being an
Yeah,
accountant, but writing a book.
yeah,
It means saying yes to the things that you had no idea you would ever imagine yourself to do, and opening those doors, because you never know what's on the other side.
yeah. That's stepping outside of your comfort zone big time, right? So from time to time, Nelson, and I'm sure this has happened to you, and I know, like, because we've had other conversations, when we were all together during, working on the TED Talk, you've had fears, apprehensions, doubts, and most people do. Sometimes people are so into overwhelm, they don't even see the light, that there could be a light that could be switched on the other side. When you have been kind of gripped by these doubts or fears, what's one thing that's helped you kind of move through that to come through the other side?
For me, it was filtering who I spent the most time with, because I started to realize that the doubts and fears were actually from other people questioning me. "Nelson, do you think that's really going to work? Like, Nelson, why are you doing that?
Ah,
Does it really make sense?" And that started creating thoughts in my mind of, "Hey, maybe this actually won't work, or maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Maybe I should just stay and keep
yeah,
doing the things that I'm doing and hoping for different results." And we all know that never works. So removing or limiting or creating boundaries with certain people in my life really helped me elevate to that next level, because I started finding those mentors and reading more books and opening new perspectives that taught me that you can really do anything that you want if you believe in it.
Yes.
So that trigger moment was flipping the switch of relying on outside validation to relying on inside validation. And that's what really changed my perspective and my journey.
That makes such a big difference for anybody and everybody, is where you get your validation from, because you can't move forward if you're only relying on outside validation. Yeah,
Exactly.
there's a great book by Susan Jeffers, who's passed away, called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I don't know if you've read that.
I've heard of it. I have not read it. No.
Yeah, well, you're already practicing it, because that's what she talks about, is that many of us grow up validating ourselves through other people instead of actually looking inside and validating ourselves from the inside out, right? Just like what you said. If you could go back to the beginning of when you started your business, you're a chartered professional accountant, and I know you went through school, but if you can go back to the very, very beginning when you started, after graduating, what would you do differently, knowing what you know now? What would you do differently, if anything?
Yeah, I feel that when I reflect back on my professional journey, I am very, very grateful for everything that's happened and how things have transpired out. Would I change anything? I don't think so, because all of those, I call them life passport stamps that I've
Yes,
collected
yeah,
along the
yeah,
way, have
yes,
been so invaluable to me. So I don't think I would change it, because where I'm at today is where I dreamed of being 5 years ago.
yeah. I think I that's wonderful news, because sometimes people go, "Oh, I would do so much," but it sounded to me like you were already on the road, and just keeping on that road as just basically helped you with more. So a question, I'll just kind of go back to the public speaking component here, because often people go, "Oh, accountants don't know how to public speak." I've never met an accountant yet who does not know how to speak. And I used to teach weekend workshops in public speaking to accountants, and they were all so amazing. So I don't know where that story comes about accountants not being able to speak. But in terms of you being able to stand on stage, go and give presentations to other groups, what would you recommend? Would you recommend to people to take the TEDx stage? Would you recommend them to take public speaking courses? Would you say that being able to speak publicly relatively comfortably and do a great job is something that people really should aspire to learning in terms of developing their own self and developing their business?
Absolutely. I think that whether it's professional or personal, it's really important to be a strong public speaker. Like, if your friend asks you, "Hey, can you give a speech at my wedding?" Or, "Hey, can you lead this group to, plan this party?" Like, you will require these public speaking skills wherever you go in life. And I just feel that if you're going to do it right. And for me, that do it right moment was hiring a coach like yourself to take me through the process and teach me the rights and wrongs around public speaking and how to be more confident so I can deliver an effective talk. So absolutely, yes, I believe that everybody should seek that training. TEDx stage, is it right for you? I'm not sure. It depends what message you're trying to share with the world. If it's warranted to be on the TEDx stage, then you've got my support, because I've been there and done that. But I believe at the bare minimum, everyone should work on their public speaking and be a confident speaker.
I'm going to say, well, because I teach public speaking, I'm going to say, whoa, I mean, that's pretty cool to hear that from you. The one thing I've found is that it's just not public speaking that gets developed, but you change inside. Yeah, your confidence level, how you feel about yourself, your ability, your overall ability to communicate really moves up a number of notches, right?
A
So
lot of
anything else you want to say? So I'm going to right now hand the floor over to you, the floor. I mean, here we are on Zoom, but I'll give you your airtime, whatever it is. And Nelson, if you could give some advice here, 2 or 3 minutes here, just to share some of your insights or advice you might have for anybody listening out there in helping them find out more about money, understand the concept of money, or how their money is working for them, and just basically how you might be able to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one tidbit that I would leave here with the audience is, if you're the first step to trying to get your money right is to create a budget. And it's really not as intimidating as we may think it is. Creating a budget can be very simple, but you just need to understand where your money comes in from and where it's going out to. So as long as you can map those two things, money in, money out, you should be able to create an effective budget for yourself. Of course, the constraint would be that the money that comes in should be more than the money that goes out. It seems obvious, but sometimes people, they forget that.
Yeah.
But I would encourage everybody out there to try to create a budget. It might not be the most perfect thing out there, but you got to start. And from there, you refine, and it just gets better over time. So I really hope that you get out there and handle your money, because it's really, really important. And I think that a lot of people misunderstand how much money they actually need in retirement than they actually do. So please take care of your money. I'm here to help as a resource. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on TikTok. I'm available on all the social media platforms. I'm a money coach. I also run my own consulting business. It's called FSQ Consulting, with my co-authors of Life Literacy, Matt Young, Stan Peak, and our CEO, Taryn Lipschitz. We help with financial accounting. We help with fractional CFO work, marketing, and executive leadership coaching. So we're a one-stop shop, multifaceted business, and we'd love to help you out. So please be in touch.
I would encourage anyone, even if life is going well and you've got yourself a budget, to really connect with Nelson. And I will also put this out. You are never, ever too young to start finding out about how money works and how to make it work for you. You're never too young, right? But if you start when you're young, you're going to have a much better long road when you're looking toward retirement. Because I would say probably a lot of people when they're young don't even think about retirement. It's so far removed that it's not even on your radar screen. Buying that, nice leather jacket might be on the radar screen, but that retirement will pop up one day, and it's better to leave the leather jacket and think about how money works and work toward the retirement. So I just want to say thank you, Nelson. It has been a joy speaking with you. It's just great. Thank you so much for coming on. And anybody out there who wants to connect with Nelson, you can see his name, Nelson So, in the little itty bitty box, S-O. Go onto his website, check him out on LinkedIn. And until next time, this is Dorothea Hendricks, your communication coach, wishing you, and wishing Nelson mountains of success.